Chapter 1. The Birth of Fear. Before the first man learned to speak, before he gave names to the sky, the fire, the sea, there was fear. It was his first companion, the shadow that followed him through every cave, every forest, every storm. It was the invisible presence that whispered, "Be ready, be careful, survive." In the beginning, fear was sacred. It was a guardian spirit, a signal from the deepest part of the brain that said, "This might kill you. Don't sleep yet. Stay alert." That fear kept our ancestors alive. It made them sharper, faster, stronger. It made them listen for the movement in the dark, smell danger before it arrived, and fight for their life with every cell of their being. But here's the truth. What once protected man now imprisons him. Because when man conquered nature, fear didn't disappear. It evolved. It no longer hides in the dark forest. It hides in your mind. It no longer protects your body from lions. It protects your ego from embarrassment, your comfort from growth, your dreams from risk. You see, fear didn't die when we became civilized. It adapted. It found a new home inside your thoughts, and it speaks your language fluently. Now it says things like, "What if they laugh at you? What if you fail? What if you lose everything?" And the tragedy is, most people listen, they obey, they stop moving forward, not because they are weak, but because they confuse comfort with safety. They think avoiding fear means avoiding danger. But the opposite is true. The more you avoid fear, the more you build your own cage. The modern man has become the most comfortable slave in history, a prisoner of invisible walls made from excuses, procrastination, and logic that sounds reasonable, but kills the soul. Fear whispers, "Be careful." And a man stops. Fear whispers, "You're not ready." And a man waits. Fear whispers, "What will people say?" And a man stays small for the rest of his life. This is not survival. This is self-destruction with polite reasoning. Napoleon Hill once said, "Fear is nothing more than a state of mind." And if that's true, then your biggest enemy doesn't live outside you. It lives within you. That voice that tells you to wait for the right moment, that's fear. The need to be liked by everyone, that's fear. The desire to stay invisible so you don't get judged, that's fear again. Wearing a mask of humility. But understand this, fear can't survive in the presence of awareness. Once you look it in the eye, it starts to fade. Because fear has no body. It lives only in imagination. The moment you see through it, you realize something powerful. You were never fighting fear. You were fighting yourself. The part of you that craves approval, that wants to be comfortable, that hates uncertainty, that part is not your enemy, but it's not your leader either. Your mind has two voices, one that commands and one that obeys, one that builds and one that hides. And the tragedy is that most people spend their entire life obeying the wrong one. But here's the law. You can't kill fear by running. You can't silence it by pretending it's gone. You can only master it by doing exactly what it tells you not to do. When the voice says, "Don't speak," that's the moment you must speak. When it says, "Don't try," that's the moment you must move. When it screams, "You'll lose," that's the moment you must risk everything. Because every time you obey fear, you make it stronger. But every time you move through it, you take its power back. You can't eliminate fear. You can only outgrow it. And growth begins the moment you decide to act in spite of it. Listen carefully. Fear is ancient, but your awareness is eternal. You are not the trembling animal hiding in the dark anymore. You are the consciousness that can command the dark itself. The question is not whether you feel fear. Will you be ruled by it, or will you use it? Fear is energy. If you let it consume you, it burns you. If you channel it, it becomes fire. Fire that forges character, that sharpens focus, that builds greatness. So, from this moment, when fear speaks, don't argue, don't run, just listen and move anyway. That's how legends are made, not by erasing fear, but by walking with it until it becomes your shadow again, not your master. And when you do, something inside you shifts. The trembling turns into power. The hesitation becomes rhythm, and you realize you were never afraid of the world. You were afraid of your own potential, because once you truly see how powerful you are, there's no going back. So remember this: fear was born to serve you, not to rule you. And if you command it, you command life itself. Chapter 2: The Two Types of Fear. There are two kinds of fear. One keeps you alive, the other keeps you average. The first kind, real fear. It's when your body senses real danger. A speeding car, a fire, a wild animal, a cliff's edge. That fear is biological. It's the body's alarm clock. It makes your heart race, your senses sharpen. It saves you. But the second kind, the one that rules most lives today, is fabricated fear. It's not in your environment, it's in your imagination. It's the fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of being seen trying and not succeeding. It's the fear that says, what if they laugh? What if I'm not enough? What if I lose everything? And it's that kind of fear that silently kills millions of dreams every single day. You see, your body was built for survival, but your mind was designed for creation. And when the survival system hijacks the creative one, you stop evolving. That's why so many people feel stuck. They're not lazy, they're scared, they stay in jobs they hate, relationships that drain them, cities that suffocate them, because their imagination is more terrifying than their reality. You ever notice how the things you fear are almost never physical? You don't wake up terrified of lions or floods. You wake up scared of emails, of phone calls, of taking a risk that could change everything. And the irony, every time you avoid that fear, you confirm to your mind that it was right, that the danger was real. So it grows, it feeds, it becomes stronger. But when you face it, when you walk straight toward what scares you, something strange happens. Your body still shakes, but your mind becomes sharp. You begin to feel alive. That's because you're finally using fear as fuel, not as a brake. Look, fear has no actual power. It's electricity, neutral. It can light up your city or burn down your house, depending on who's in control. Napoleon Hill called it the state of mind that paralyzes your reason. He said, a man whose mind is dominated by fear cannot use his faith. And that's the truth. Faith and fear are two sides of the same coin. Both are belief in something that hasn't happened yet. Fear is belief in failure. Faith is belief in possibility. You decide every morning which one you'll serve. I remember talking to a man once. He was 52, had worked the same factory job for 25 years. He said, I always wanted to start my own workshop. You know, fix cars, build things. But I was afraid it wouldn't work, I asked. And what did that fear give you? He looked down and said quietly, nothing. Just 25 years of waiting. That's the cost of the second kind of fear, the imaginary one. It doesn't take your life. It just takes your years. Real fear saves your body. Fake fear destroys your soul. The trick isn't to kill fear completely. It's to identify which kind you're dealing with. Ask yourself, is this protecting me or preventing me? If it's protecting, listen. If it's preventing, move. Most of what you fear is paper walls. They look solid until you touch them, and once you walk through them, you realize the world doesn't bite that hard. People forget faster than you think. Failure doesn't kill you. Rejection doesn't define you. It just teaches you. Every successful person you admire felt the same fear you do. The only difference is they didn't wait for it to disappear. They moved while it was still there. So remember this, you don't overcome fear by thinking. You overcome it by moving. Action dissolves anxiety. Every step you take in the direction of what scares you shrinks the monster, because the mind can't hold fear and focus at the same time. One of them dies, and it's never the one you feed. So ask yourself right now, what's that one thing you've been avoiding? That call, that message, that risk, that dream, whatever comes to mind first, that's your work. That's where your life begins again, because the day you start walking through your fears is the day you stop dying by them. Fear was never here to stop you. It was here to test you, to see if you'd still move when your legs were shaking. And that's the secret. Courage isn't being fearless, it's being terrified and doing it anyway. Chapter 3, The Invisible Prison. Most people aren't trapped by walls. They're trapped by thoughts, not by chains, but by routines, by what ifs, by maybe later. The prison is invisible, but it feels real. You can wake up every day, go to work, scroll your phone, eat dinner, laugh a little, sleep again, and still be behind bars. Bars made of comfort, of doubt, of tiny fears that whisper, don't change what's working. But here's the thing. For most people, what's working isn't actually working. Yes, so that's just and so there's a gesture. It's just not scary. There's a difference. I once met a man at a train station. He was around 40. He said, Afrai, I hate my job, and every morning it feels like I'm walking into a coffin. I asked, then why do you stay? He smiled, a sad smile, and said, because I'm used to the smell. That's what fear does. It convinces you that familiar pain is safer than unknown freedom. It tells you, at least here you know what to expect. It whispers, don't risk losing what little you have. And you start to believe it. You start calling your prison stability. You decorate it. You call it routine. You tell yourself not everyone can live their dream. Every time you silence that quiet voice inside, every time you say maybe next year, every time you choose comfort over calling, you add another bar to the cage. And the scariest part, you don't even notice. You think you're being practical, rational, mature. But practicality is often fear wearing a suit and tie. It says things like, be realistic, play it safe, don't dream too big. That's fear pretending to be your friend. But think about it. How many people do you know who are alive but not living, breathing but numb, moving but going nowhere? They wake up with no fire, no curiosity, no fight. They've traded possibility for predictability. And here's the dark secret. Once the cage becomes comfortable, you stop trying to leave. You tell yourself stories like, it's not the right time. I'm not ready yet. I just need to save more. And you call it patience. But it's fear. Because there will never be a right time, fear makes sure of that. It feeds on hesitation. It wants you to think one more day, wait one more week, plan one more step, until you realize 20 years are gone. You see, fear doesn't kill your dream instantly. It kills it quietly, by delay, by distraction, by logic. It makes you scroll instead of build, complain instead of change, talk instead of act. And before you know it, you've spent more time watching other people live than living yourself. Napoleon Hill wrote, Most people fail because they wait for the right time to start. The right time is now, he understood. Fear's greatest weapon is time. It convinces you that you still have plenty, but time is the one currency you can never refill. So what's the way out of this invisible prison? Awareness, action, repetition. You break the walls one honest decision at a time. You stop waiting for motivation. You stop waiting for confidence. You stop waiting for permission, and you start moving, shaky, uncertain, maybe terrified, but moving. Every small act of courage cracks the wall a little more. One morning you wake up and the bars are gone. You realize the cage was never real. It was built by thought and destroyed by motion. Listen. There's nothing noble about living small. There's nothing safe about wasting potential. And there's nothing mature about dying inside slowly so others can feel comfortable. Fear will always knock at your door, but you don't have to invite it in. And if you already built your prison, good. Because now you know how to tear it down, brick by brick, excuse by excuse, day by day, until you can finally walk out into the open, look back at everything you once called security, and smile, because you'll see it for what it really was, the training ground, the test, the illusion you had to outgrow to meet your real self, the one who's not afraid anymore. Chapter 4. Napoleon Hill's Warning. Fear Kills Desire. Napoleon Hill said something most people never really hear. He said, "Fear kills more dreams than failure ever will." And he was right, because failure only happens once, but fear kills you every single day. Every time you say, "I'll start tomorrow." Every time you tell someone it's not the right moment. Every time you hide your fire because the room feels cold, you bury your desire a little deeper. Hill spent 20 years studying the greatest men of his time. Ford, Edison, Carnegie, Rockefeller. All of them had one thing in common. Not luck, not intelligence, not privilege. They had this, an unshakable decision to move forward, even when they were scared. He called it definiteness of purpose. That's the law that separates the dreamers from the builders. And the opposite of that law? Fear. Fear makes you uncertain. Uncertainty makes you slow. Slowness makes you lose fire. Fear doesn't attack your hands. It attacks your desire. Because once the desire is gone, your body follows. Hill warned that there are 6 major fears that rule the modern mind, and if you don't recognize them, they quietly own you. Let's name them. Fear of poverty. You stay in a job you hate because you're terrified of losing a paycheck, even though your soul's already broke. Fear of criticism. You hide your work, your ideas, your truths because you're afraid someone online will laugh. But the ones who laugh have already lost. Fear of ill health. You read about every symptom, live like you're fragile glass, and in the end, fear itself makes you sick. Fear of loss of love. You cling to people who drain you just because you're afraid to be alone. That's not love. That's fear wearing perfume. Fear of old age. You panic when your face changes, but forget that your spirit has no wrinkles. And fear of death. The final one, the shadow behind all the others. Because if you truly accepted that one day you'll die, you'd stop wasting so much damn time being careful. Hill said it clearly. Fear kills desire faster than anything else because it paralyzes your ability to think. You can't create while you're afraid. You can't dream while you're doubting. And you can't grow while you're trying to survive. That's why the moment you start to rise, fear appears. It doesn't come when you're weak. It comes when you're close, because fear knows If you move one more step, you'll never listen to it again. It's the final test. You know that feeling when you almost take a risk, send the message, quit the job, start the project, and then your chest tightens? That's the gate. That's fear's last defense. It's not telling you to stop. It's asking, do you really want this? And that's the question Hill built his entire philosophy on. Do you want it enough to burn your bridges, to risk being misunderstood, to be the only one in your circle who walks toward the fire while others run? 'Cause that's the price of real desire. You can read every book, watch every video, collect every quote, but until you decide to act through fear, you're just gathering courage instead of using it. Hill didn't write Think and Grow Rich for people who believe in success. He wrote it for those who are ready to command it. So ask yourself, when was the last time you did something you were genuinely afraid to do? Not dangerous, not stupid, just bold, uncomfortable, raw. Because that's where the real you lives, and on the edge between fear and desire. Most people spend their life avoiding that edge. You were born to walk it. Remember this, desire is the fuel, fear is the lock, and decision is the key. Turn it and watch what happens. Chapter 5, The Laws of the Mind, How Fear is Formed. The mind is the most powerful machine on earth. It can build an empire or a prison, and fear is the code that decides which one you live in. You weren't born afraid. You were programmed bit by bit, moment by moment. When you were a child, you didn't fear falling. You fell 100 times and laughed, but then someone said, "Be careful," and your brain wrote its first command. Avoid pain. As you grew up, that command evolved into something more dangerous. Avoid failure, avoid rejection, avoid risk, and that's how fear is formed. Not by danger, but by repetition, by the same message played on loop inside your head until it becomes truth. Every time you say, "I can't," "I shouldn't," "what if," your mind listens. It doesn't argue. It obeys, because your mind doesn't care if what you tell it is true or false. It only cares if you repeat it. Napoleon Hill called this autosuggestion. It's the law that shapes your entire life, whether you use it consciously or not. If you keep telling yourself you're not ready, your mind will make sure you stay that way. If you keep saying money's hard, your brain will block every opportunity that looks too easy. If you repeat, "I always get anxious," your nervous system will create that anxiety even when nothing's wrong. That's how fear becomes muscle memory. And here's the twist. The mind doesn't stop the loop on its own. It needs a new command. It needs you to overwrite the code. Every great transformation starts with one decision: to speak differently to yourself. You can't think your way out of fear, but you can rewire it. You do it through repetition. The same way fear learned to live in your mind, you teach courage to replace it. Let me make it simple. The brain has no sense of humor. It starts scanning for proof. It finds that one time you failed and replays it like evidence in a courtroom. You lose the case. And again. But if you say, I'm learning, I'm improving, I'm built for this, it will look for proof of that instead. And it'll find it too. This is not motivation, it's mechanics. Your thoughts are blueprints. Your focus is fuel. Whatever you repeat becomes your reality. That's why most people live in loops. Same job, same habits, same fears, not because they can't change, but because they're hypnotized by their own language. They've been saying the same stories for years. I'm too tired. I don't have time. I don't have support. And their mind says, okay, understood. But imagine if you changed the script. If instead of feeding fear, you started feeding faith, You'd feel resistance at first. The old code will fight back. But if you keep going, the system rewrites itself. That's how people go from shy to confident, from broke to abundant, from anxious to calm, not by luck, by rewiring. Hill wrote, "You become what you think about all day long." It's not poetry, it's law. If you think fear, you live fear. If you think power, you live power. Every thought you repeat is a vote, and the mind always obeys the majority. So if you want to kill fear, don't fight it, drown it. Overwhelm it with new signals. Wake up and speak to your mind like a commander. I'm calm. I'm clear. I'm capable. I move with power, not once, every day, until your subconscious starts believing you again. Because your mind will always believe the loudest voice in the room. Make sure it's yours. Fear is not an enemy. It's a reminder. You've been thinking the wrong thoughts for too long. Reprogram the mind, and fear will no longer lead you. It will follow you, like a trained animal. Once wild, now obedient. Chapter 6, The 6 Basic Fears of Man. Napoleon Hill said there are 6 fears that control mankind, 6 invisible chains that keep most people crawling, even when they think they're walking. Let's talk about them, not as theories, as reflections, because each one of these lives somewhere inside you. 1. The fear of poverty. This one is the oldest, the fear of not having enough. It's why people stay in jobs they hate, why they smile at bosses they despise, why they trade years of life for a false sense of security. Poverty used to mean hunger. Now it means status. People don't fear being broke. They fear looking broke. That's why they buy cars they can't afford, clothes that impress strangers, phones that capture fake smiles. Hill warned, fear of poverty destroys the ability to think. When you're afraid of losing money, you stop taking the steps that could actually earn it. You freeze and call it being careful. But real wealth begins the moment you stop letting fear decide what you're worth. 2. The fear of criticism. This one's deadly. It doesn't stop your heart. It stops your expression. It makes you hide your work, your opinions, your true self. Makes artists delete their art and men stay silent about their purpose. Today, criticism isn't just from peoples, it's from pixels, a comment, a like, a view count. That's the new public execution. But think about this. The people who judge you are usually too afraid to create anything themselves. So who's really stronger? When you fear judgment, you hand strangers the keys to your potential. Don't. As Hill wrote, do not expect the world to understand your vision until it becomes reality. 3. The fear of ill health. It starts as a concern and turns into a cage. Every ache becomes a symptom. Every symptom, a diagnosis. Every diagnosis. Fear itself becomes the illness. You scroll, you Google, you panic, you forget that the human body was designed to heal, to fight, to adapt. Hill said, the fear of disease often produces the symptoms of the disease itself. The cure, movement, faith, a decision to trust your system more than your screen. Your body listens to your mind. Speak life into it, not fear. 4. The fear of loss of love, the most emotional one. This fear makes people cling to what's gone, beg for what doesn't serve them, and stay loyal to pain just because they're afraid of being alone. But listen, love built on fear isn't love. It's dependence. It's comfort dressed as connection. You'll never find the right person if you're terrified of losing the wrong one. True love starts when you're whole alone, when you can say, I choose you, not because I need you, but because I want to build with you, Sas. 5. The fear of old age. The mirror becomes the enemy. A wrinkle, a gray hair, a slower step, and people panic because we live in a world that worships youth and fears time. But time is not the enemy. It's the sculptor. Every line on your face is proof you lived, you laughed, you tried. Hill said the only thing worse than growing old is growing bitter. Age doesn't steal your power. Fear of aging does. It's stay curious, stay hungry, stay in motion, because the man who keeps learning never grows old. 6, the fear of death, the ultimate one, the root beneath all others. Every fear traces back to this, the fear of endings, of losing control, of disappearing. But here's the truth, Hill whispered between his lines. You can't truly live until you stop fearing death, because only when you accept that your time is limited do you start using it like it matters. Every second becomes sharper, every morning sacred, every risk a privilege. Death doesn't end life. Fear of death ends it early. You are not a body counting down days. You are the awareness moving through them. So when you stop asking, how long do I have? And start asking, how alive am I? That's when fear finally lets go. These 6 fears, they're not random. They're the roots of all hesitation, all procrastination, all quiet regret. But Hill didn't write them to scare you. He wrote them to show you the code. Because once you see the code, you can rewrite it. You don't eliminate fear. You outgrow it. When your purpose gets louder than your excuses, fear starts to fade. When you move toward what scares you, it becomes your servant. And one day you'll realize fear never left. It just started walking behind you instead of in front of you. Chapter 6, The 6 Basic Fears of Man. Napoleon Hill said there are 6 fears that control mankind, 6 invisible chains that keep most people crawling, even when they think they're walking. Let's talk about them, not as theories, as reflections, because each one of these lives somewhere inside you. 1, the fear of poverty. This one is the oldest, the fear of not having enough. It's why people stay in jobs they hate, why they smile at bosses they despise, why they trade years of life for a false sense of security. Poverty used to mean hunger. Now it means status. People don't fear being broke. They fear looking broke. That's why they buy cars they can't afford, clothes that impress strangers, phones that capture fake smiles. Hill warned, fear of poverty destroys the ability to think. When you're afraid of losing money, you stop taking the steps that could actually earn it. You freeze and call it being careful. But real wealth begins the moment you stop letting fear decide what you're worth. 2, the fear of criticism. This one's deadly. It doesn't stop your heart. It stops your expression. It makes you hide your work, your opinions, your true self. Makes artists delete their art and men stay silent about their purpose. Today, criticism isn't just from peoples. It's from pixels, a comment, a like, a view count. That's the new public execution. But think about this. The people who judge you are usually too afraid to create anything themselves. So who's really stronger? When you fear judgment, you hand strangers the keys to your potential. Don't. As Hill wrote, do not expect the world to understand your vision until it becomes reality. 3, the fear of ill health. It starts as a concern and turns into a cage. Every ache becomes a symptom. Every symptom, a diagnosis. Every diagnosis, fear itself becomes the illness. You scroll, you Google, you panic. You forget that the human body was designed to heal, to fight, to adapt. Hill said, the fear of disease often produces the symptoms of the disease itself. The cure, movement, faith, a decision to trust your system more than your screen. Your body listens to your mind. Speak life into it, not fear. 4. The fear of loss of love, the most emotional one. This fear makes people cling to what's gone, beg for what doesn't serve them, and stay loyal to pain just because they're afraid of being alone. But listen, love built on fear isn't love. It's dependence. It's comfort dressed as connection. You'll never find the right person if you're terrified of losing the wrong one. True love starts when you're whole alone, when you can say, I choose you, not because I need you, but because I want to build with you, Sas. 5, the fear of old age. The mirror becomes the enemy. A wrinkle, a gray hair, a slower step, and people panic because we live in a world that worships youth and fears time. But time is not the enemy. It's the sculptor. Every line on your face is proof you lived, you laughed, you tried. Hill said the only thing worse than growing old is growing bitter. Age doesn't steal your power. Fear of aging does. It's stay curious, stay hungry, stay in motion. Because the man who keeps learning never grows old. 6, the fear of death, the ultimate one, the root beneath all others. Every fear traces back to this, the fear of endings, of losing control, of disappearing. But here's the truth, Hill whispered between his lines. You can't truly live until you stop fearing death, because only when you accept that your time is limited do you start using it like it matters. Every second becomes sharper, every morning sacred, every risk a privilege. Death doesn't end life. Fear of death ends it early. You are not a body counting down days. You are the awareness moving through them. So when you stop asking, how long do I have? And start asking, how alive am I? That's when fear finally lets go. These 6 fears, they're not random. They're the roots of all hesitation, all procrastination, all quiet regret. But Hill didn't write them to scare you. He wrote them to show you the code. Because once you see the code, you can rewrite it. You don't eliminate fear. You outgrow it. When your purpose gets louder than your excuses, fear starts to fade. Chapter 7, The Psychology of Control. How to stop being a slave to fear. Fear wins only when you let your mind wander, because fear doesn't live in the present. It lives in imagination. The mind creates a movie, and you believe it. You see yourself failing, losing, being rejected, and your body reacts like it's happening now. Your palms sweat, heart races, muscles tense. It's not the world scaring you, it's your screen. So rule number 1, catch the movie. The moment you feel panic rising, pause. Don't fight it. Name it. Say, this is a projection, not reality. That sentence alone breaks the trance. You have to understand, the brain can't tell the difference between imagination and memory. That's why fear feels so real. You're feeding your system with fake data, but you can feed it new data too. Visualization isn't just for athletes, it's a weapon. See yourself acting calm. See yourself winning. Your nervous system will follow the image you play the most. That's how control begins, not with suppression, but with substitution. Rule number 2, control your breathing. You can't think your way out of fear, but you can breathe your way through it. When fear spikes, your breathing shortens. It tells your body danger. You reverse it. Slow inhale through the nose, slow exhale through the mouth. Repeat it 3 times. It's primitive biology. If you can control your breath, your brain assumes you're safe. The movie fades. Napoleon Hill wrote, "A mind dominated by fear cannot reason clearly." So you use the body to clear it. Breathe first, think later. Rule number 3, shift your focus. Fear loves attention. The more you stare at it, the bigger it grows. Imagine you're holding a flashlight in the dark. Where you point it becomes your world. Most people aim it right at their worry. That's why the fear looks endless. Move the light. Ask, what can I control right now? Then do that. Tiny actions kill big panic. Call the client, send the message, open the laptop, wash the damn dishes. Anything that moves you forward even 1 millimeter tells your brain we're in command, and fear starts backing off. Rule number 4, the inner dialogue. You talk to yourself all day. But what language do you use? Most people speak to themselves like enemies. Don't mess this up. You always fail. This never works. That's self-hypnosis for disaster. Change the tone. Speak like a leader. Short, direct, certain. I got this. One step at a time. I've done harder things. Your subconscious isn't poetic. It just counts repetitions. Feed it certainty. Now that gives you composure. Rule number 5, rehearse discomfort. Every fear shrinks after contact. If speaking scares you, speak more. If rejection stings, get rejected on purpose. If cold water terrifies you, take cold showers until it stops. Exposure rewires the system. Your brain learns, we didn't die. And suddenly, you're free. That's how warriors are built. Not by avoiding fear, but by shaking hands with it daily. Remember this equation. Awareness plus action equals authority. Awareness shows you the illusion. Action proves it wrong. Together, they create control. That's psychology, not magic. Hill said, the mind becomes what it is fed. Feed it direction and it serves you. Feed it fear and it owns you. So the next time anxiety rises, don't try to kill it. Command it. Tell your body, we're safe. Tell your mind, we're busy. Then act before the echo returns, because fear is fast, but decision is faster. And the man who decides always beats the man who doubts. Chapter 8, The Final Enemy, Death Itself. Everything you've feared up to now was only a rehearsal for this one. The fear of endings, the fear that time will run out before you become who you were meant to be. Napoleon Hill wrote, no man can be truly free until he conquers the fear of death. Because when you stop fearing death, you start respecting life. We don't talk about it, but it follows us everywhere. It hides in the rush, in the endless scrolling, in the obsession to stay young, to stay relevant, to stay busy enough not to think. But the moment you stop running and look it in the face, you discover something strange. Death isn't against you. It's a mirror. It asks, what are you doing with the time I've given you? Most people never answer. They're too busy pretending they have forever. The truth is, you've already died 1,000 small deaths. The day you gave up on a dream, the day you stayed silent instead of honest, the day you played it safe. Physical death is easy. The spiritual one happens every time you stop living. So how do you conquer the final enemy? You stop hiding from the question. You let it sharpen you. You wake up every morning and ask, if today was my last, would I be proud of this version of me? If the answer is no, change it before the sun sets. That's not morbid. That's clarity. Because when you live with death beside you, you stop wasting hours on nonsense. You stop arguing over small things. You stop postponing what matters. The fear of death disappears when you start dying with purpose every day, letting go of the false, killing the laziness, burning the doubt. That's how you earn peace. One day, the body will stop. That's not defeat. That's transition. But what you've built inside, the courage, the energy, the ideas, the love, that doesn't die. It moves forward through others, through the work you leave, through the people you've lifted. So no, death is not the end. It's the handshake that says, you used your time well. From now on, let death be your teacher, not your terror. Let it remind you that every breath counts, that every sunrise is a privilege, that fear of loss only means you found something worth loving. And when that final day comes, you won't beg for more time. You'll smile and say, I spent it all. Chapter 9. Kill the fear, the final command. Enough thinking, enough waiting, enough talking about someday. This is the moment, right now, this breath. Everything you feared, everything you've avoided was never the enemy. It was training, preparation, fire to forge you. You've spent years listening to the voice of hesitation. Now it's time to speak louder. Say it out loud. I am done with fear. Again, louder. I am done with fear. From this moment on, fear doesn't lead. You do. You choose the road. You call the shot. You build, you act, you move. No matter how it feels, because you finally understand. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision that something else matters more. Hill said, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Then believe it. Not later. Now. You don't need permission. You don't need perfect timing. You don't need to be ready. You just need to move. Start the project. Make the call. Speak the truth. Forgive yourself. Live like your time is running out, because it is. Let faith lead your steps. Let purpose burn the excuses. And when fear shows up, smile. You'll know what to do. Walk through it every time. Because fear dies when confronted. It feeds on delay, but it starves in motion. So this is the command, the last one. Kill the fear. Not with anger, but with action. Not by waiting, but by walking. Not by shouting, but by deciding. Because you are not the man who hesitates anymore. You are the man who moves. Now go and live like you were never afraid.